Ambassador Sarah Chen stood in the crystalline chamber of the Galactic Council, her hands trembling with barely contained rage. The holographic display before her showed Earth's coordinates, marked with a pulsing red symbol that meant only one thing: condemned for destruction. "You cannot be serious," she whispered, her voice echoing in the vast chamber that housed representatives from 47 different species. High Counselor Zethkar, a towering reptilian creature with scales that shifted colors with his emotions, leaned forward on his floating platform. His scales had turned a deep crimson, indicating satisfaction. "The human species has been deemed too dangerous to exist alongside civilized galactic society. Your aggressive tendencies, your unpredictable nature, and your rapid technological advancement pose an unacceptable threat." Sarah's mind raced back to humanity's first contact with the galactic community just 50 years ago. Earth had been a small, isolated world struggling with climate change and resource depletion. When the Galactic Council made contact, they offered humanity a choice: join their peaceful federation and receive advanced technology to save their dying planet, or face isolation forever. The choice had seemed obvious. Humanity gladly accepted membership, eagerly learning from species that had mastered faster-than-light travel, clean energy, and terraforming. Human scientists worked alongside alien researchers. Human engineers helped build magnificent space stations, and human diplomats negotiated trade agreements that brought prosperity to dozens of worlds. But humanity had made one critical error. They had been too good at everything. Within 2 decades, human-designed ships were outperforming vessels that had taken other species centuries to perfect. Human medical researchers had solved diseases that had plagued alien civilizations for millennia. Human agricultural techniques had turned barren worlds into gardens. Most troubling of all, human military tacticians had revolutionized defensive strategies, making previously vulnerable worlds nearly impregnable. "We welcomed you as friends," Sarah said, her voice growing stronger. "We shared our knowledge freely. We asked for nothing but peaceful coexistence." Counselor Vexani, an ethereal being of pure energy contained within a crystalline form, spoke next. Her voice resonated like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Your species learns too quickly. Your minds adapt too fast. In 50 years you have accomplished what takes most species 500 years. This rate of advancement is unnatural," Sarah laughed bitterly. "So you punish us for being gifted? For working hard and thinking creatively? You misunderstand," rumbled Counselor Gorth, a massive creature that resembled a walking mountain of living stone. "This is not punishment. This is preservation of the galactic order." The truth hit Sarah like a physical blow. This wasn't about humanity being dangerous or aggressive. The Galactic Council had built their power on being the technological and intellectual superiors of younger species. They maintained control by keeping other civilizations dependent on their advanced knowledge and resources. Humanity's rapid advancement threatened that carefully maintained hierarchy. "You're afraid," she realized aloud. "You're terrified that we'll surpass you." The chamber fell silent. Several counselors shifted uncomfortably in their seats, their various forms of communication betraying their anxiety. Zethkar's scales flickered between red and purple, a sign of inner conflict. "The decision has been made," Vexani said finally. "Earth will be quarantined first, then sterilized. Your species will be recorded in the galactic archives as a promising but ultimately failed experiment in rapid evolution." Sarah's tablet chimed softly. She glanced down and saw a priority message from Earth's Defense Command. Her blood turned to ice as she read the contents. Galactic Council ships had already surrounded Earth's solar system. They weren't just threatening humanity's destruction, they were already implementing it. "The quarantine field will prevent any human vessel from leaving your solar system," Gorth explained with what might have been sympathy in his rumbling voice. "Your communications with the galaxy have been severed. In 7 rotations, our fleet will commence planetary sterilization." Sarah closed her eyes and thought of her homeworld. She pictured the rebuilt cities with their gleaming towers reaching toward the stars, the restored oceans teeming with life, the green forests that had replaced the polluted wastelands of the previous century. She thought of her daughter, playing in the gardens of New Geneva, believing the universe was a place of wonder and friendship. When she opened her eyes, they burned with a cold fire that made several counselors step back. "You have made the greatest mistake in galactic history," she said quietly. "Humanity has always been at its most dangerous when we're cornered. when we're betrayed, when we're told we cannot survive. She touched a hidden control on her tablet, activating an encrypted transmission that would reach Earth just before the communication blackout took full effect. A simple message, but one that would change everything. Prometheus protocol activated. They have chosen war. Sethkar's scales turned pale yellow with confusion. What is this Prometheus protocol? Sarah smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Prometheus was a figure from our ancient mythology who stole fire from the gods to give to humanity. When gods try to keep mortals in the dark, humans have a tendency to take what they need anyway. She turned to leave the chamber but paused at the threshold. You wanted to destroy us because we learned too quickly? Because we adapt too fast? You should have killed us the moment you met us. Because now you've given us the greatest teacher of all, desperation. As the chamber doors sealed behind her, cutting off her access to the Galactic Council forever, Sarah allowed herself one last thought of home. By the time the Council's sterilization fleet reached Earth, they would find something they never expected. Humanity had always been excellent students, and they had just learned that the universe was not the friendly place they had been told it was. That lesson would reshape the galaxy in ways the Council could never imagine. The greatest species in galactic history
had just declared war on the most adaptive
species in the universe. It would not end the way they expected. Director Marcus Webb stood in the deepest bunker beneath Geneva, watching as humanity's greatest secret came to life. The massive chamber hummed with energy as thousands of scientists and engineers worked frantically at stations arranged in concentric circles around a central platform. Above them, holographic displays showed the positions of the Galactic Council's blockade fleet, counting down the hours until Earth's supposed destruction. Status report, Marcus commanded, his voice carrying across the facility through hidden speakers. Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's leading physicist, looked up from her console with exhausted eyes that nonetheless blazed with determination. The Prometheus array is at 93% completion. The quantum tunneling network is stable, and all deep space installations have confirmed readiness. Marcus nodded grimly. The Prometheus protocol had been Earth's most closely guarded secret. A contingency plan developed after the first troubling signs that the Galactic Council viewed humanity's advancement with growing suspicion. While Earth's diplomats had smiled and cooperated openly, humanity's greatest minds had been preparing for this exact scenario. What's the status of our students? Marcus asked. Dr. James Chen, Sarah's younger brother and head of xenobiology, stepped forward. All 47 species have been thoroughly analyzed. We've identified critical weaknesses in each of their primary technologies. More importantly, we've reverse-engineered their manufacturing processes and improved upon them. The bitter irony was not lost on anyone in the room. The Galactic Council had believed they were generously sharing their knowledge with primitive humans, never realizing that humanity possessed something they had lost long ago: the ability to innovate rapidly under pressure. Every piece of technology they had shared, every cultural exchange, every joint research project had been an opportunity for humanity to learn not just how alien technology worked, but how to make it work better. Show me the fleet analysis, Marcus ordered. The central hologram shifted to display the Council's blockade. Massive vessels from dozens of species surrounded Earth's solar system in a carefully coordinated formation. Each ship was a masterpiece of engineering representing thousands of years of technological development. 1,600 vessels, reported Commander Lisa Torres, Earth's top military strategist. Their standard formation suggests they're planning a systematic bombardment starting from Earth's outer atmosphere and working inward. Based on their historical patterns, the bombardment will last approximately 48 hours to ensure complete sterilization. Marcus studied the display with the calm expression of a man who had been preparing for this moment for decades. And our response? Commander Torres smiled coldly. They're using their traditional formation because it's worked for them for millennia. They've never faced an opponent who studied their tactics and learned from them. Our analysis indicates that formation has exactly 17 critical vulnerabilities. Dr. Vasquez interrupted from her station. Director, we're receiving the final transmission from our deep space assets. All 60 hidden installations report ready status. Marcus felt a surge of pride. While the Galactic Council had been watching Earth, they had failed to notice humanity's true achievement. Over the past 30 years, using modified Council technology, Earth had secretly established hidden installations throughout the galaxy. Disguised as mining operations, research stations, and trading posts, these facilities had been gathering intelligence, stockpiling resources, and preparing for this exact contingency. "How many humans are currently off-world?" Marcus asked quietly. "Approximately 200 million, Torres replied. "All volunteers who understood they might never see Earth again. They've been establishing self-sufficient colonies in systems the Council considers uninhabitable or strategically worthless." Marcus nodded. Even if Earth fell, humanity would survive. But that wasn't the plan. Earth was going to survive, and the Galactic Council was going to learn why cornering humanity had been a fatal mistake. "Activate Phase 1, Marcus ordered. Across the chamber, consoles came alive with activity. The quantum tunneling network that humanity had secretly built over 3 decades suddenly activated, creating instantaneous communication links between Earth and every human installation in the galaxy. In an instant, Earth's isolation was broken. "Phase 1 complete," Dr. Vasquez reported. "All installations are now in real-time contact. The Council's communication blackout has been bypassed." "Excellent. Begin Phase 2. Commander Torres took control of the main display, initiating Project Revelation. Across the galaxy, in 60 star systems the Council considered secure, hidden human installations suddenly dropped their disguises. Mining facilities revealed themselves to be military shipyards. Research stations disclosed vast weapon arrays. Trading posts opened to expose fleets of vessels built using improved versions of the Council's own technology. "My God," whispered Dr. Chen, staring at the display as reports poured in from across the galaxy. "We actually did it. We built a shadow empire right under their noses." Marcus allowed himself a small smile. "Humanity has always been excellent at learning from our teachers. The Council taught us everything they knew about galactic politics, technology, and military strategy. They just failed to consider that good students sometimes surpass their instructors." The displays now showed the true scope of humanity's preparation. While Earth had appeared to be a single world dependent on Council protection, it had actually become the center of a vast network spanning dozens of star systems. More importantly, every human installation was equipped with technology that improved upon Council designs. "Incoming. Transmission from the Council fleet," reported a communications officer. "Put it through." High Counselor Zethkar's image appeared on the main screen, his scales flickering with confusion and growing alarm. "Director Webb, our sensors are detecting unauthorized transmissions from your planet. The communication blackout must remain in effect." Marcus stepped into view of the camera, his expression calm and confident. "Counselor, I'm afraid your blockade is no longer as effective as you believed. Humanity has prepared for this moment longer than you might imagine." Zethkar's scales shifted to deep purple with anger. "Impossible. We have monitored your entire civilization. You have no hidden capabilities." "That's where you made your first mistake," Marcus replied. "You monitored what we allowed you to see. You taught us the importance of strategic deception after all." The alien counselor's image flickered as his own ship's sensors began detecting the quantum transmission network. "What have you done?" Marcus gestured to the displays showing human installations across the galaxy. "We listened to excellent teachers. You taught us that knowledge is power, that technological superiority ensures survival, and that sometimes civilizations must make hard choices to protect themselves. We learned our lessons very well. For the first time in recorded galactic history, a member of the Council's ruling species looked genuinely afraid. Consider this our final diplomatic communication," Marcus continued. "You have 6 hours to withdraw your fleet and reconsider your decision. After that, humanity will demonstrate exactly why rapid adaptation is an evolutionary advantage, not a flaw." He cut the transmission and turned to his team. "Initiate Phase 3. It's time to show the galaxy what humans can accomplish when we stop being polite." The countdown to Earth's supposed destruction continued, but in the depths of Geneva, humanity's true power was awakening. The Council had wanted to destroy Earth to preserve galactic order. Instead, they had given humanity exactly what it needed to reshape that order entirely. Captain Yerathul of the Galactic Council flagship Eternal Dominion stared at her sensor readings in disbelief. In 30 years of service, she had overseen the pacification of 12 rebellious worlds and the sterilization of 3 problematic species. Never had she seen anything like what her instruments were showing her now. "Captain," her weapons officer reported, his crystalline form pulsing with anxiety, "we're detecting massive energy signatures emerging throughout the Sol system. The readings don't match any known technology in the Galactic database." Yarathul, a member of the ancient Velkar species whose people had been among the founding members of the Council, felt something she hadn't experienced in decades: uncertainty. Elaborate. "Ma'am, there are structures materializing throughout the asteroid belt. They appear to be weapons platforms, but our scanners can't penetrate their shielding to determine their exact nature." On the main display, the asteroid belt that had seemed empty just hours before was now revealed to be honeycombed with massive installations. Sleek, angular structures emerged from what had appeared to be ordinary space rocks, their hulls gleaming with energy fields that made the Council's best shields look primitive. "How is this possible?" Yarathul demanded. "Our scouts surveyed this system thoroughly. These installations would have taken decades to build." Her science officer, a multi-tentacled being from the aquatic Nethys homeworld, rippled with nervous colors. "Captain, I'm analyzing the construction methods. These platforms appear to use self-replicating assembly technology. If the humans placed even a few seed units in these asteroids decades ago, the implications hit Yarathul like a physical blow. While the Council had been watching Earth itself, humanity had been quietly converting their entire solar system into a fortress. Every asteroid, every moon, every piece of space debris had potentially been turned into a weapon aimed at any invading force. Incoming transmission from all human installations simultaneously. Her communications officer announced, "Put it through." The display filled with the image of Director Webb. But he was no longer alone. Behind him stood representatives from human installations across the galaxy, their faces grim and determined. More disturbing was what they wore: uniforms that incorporated design elements from every major species in the Council, as if humanity had taken the best aspects of galactic civilization and merged them into something uniquely their own. "Council forces," Webb began, his voice carrying the weight of absolute confidence. "You have 4 hours and 37 minutes remaining to withdraw from this system. This is not a negotiation." Yarathul activated her own transmission. "Director Webb, I am Captain Yarathul of the Council Defense Force. Your hidden installations are impressive, but you face the combined might of 47 species. Surrender now, and your deaths will be swift." Webb smiled, and the expression sent chills through every officer on the bridge. "Captain, I appreciate your concern for our welfare. However, I think you're operating under some significant misconceptions about your tactical situation." He gestured to something off-screen, and suddenly every Council vessel's proximity alarms began screaming simultaneously. The human asteroid installations weren't just appearing, they were targeting every ship in the blockade, fleet with weapon systems that registered as more powerful than anything in the Council's arsenal. "Impossible," Yarathul whispered. "Our shields can withstand anything. Our vessels are invulnerable to primitive weapons." "Your shields are indeed impressive," Webb acknowledged. "We studied them very carefully over the past 50 years. We also studied the weapons designed to defeat them, the manufacturing processes that create them, and the theoretical improvements that your own scientists proposed but never implemented due to bureaucratic constraints." The tactical display showed targeting locks from thousands of hidden human weapons converging on the Council fleet. Each ship was being tracked by multiple systems, and the energy readings suggested firepower levels that should have been impossible for a species barely 50 years into space travel. "You see, Captain, your people made a critical error in judgment. You assumed that because humanity was young, we were primitive. You shared your knowledge freely because you believed we lacked the intellectual capacity to improve upon it. You never considered that innovation requires not just intelligence, but desperation and freedom from tradition." Yarathul's tactical officer, a four-armed insectoid being whose species had mastered warfare before humanity discovered fire, spoke in clicks and whistles that translated as pure terror. "Captain, they're not just targeting our ships. They're targeting our ship's specific vulnerabilities. They know exactly where to hit us." The human installations had identified the weak points in every Council vessel design, structural stress points that were classified secrets, shield frequency gaps that only the builders should have known, weapon cooldown cycles that were considered state secrets. Somehow humanity had acquired detailed schematics of every ship in the fleet. How do they know? Yarathul demanded. Webb's smile widened. Captain, for 50 years humans have worked alongside your crews, studied in your academies, served internships on your ships, and collaborated on your research projects. Did you really believe we weren't paying attention? Every friendship, every joint project, every cultural exchange was an opportunity to learn. You taught us everything willingly, never imagining we might use that knowledge to defend ourselves. The strategic implications were staggering. The Council had built its power on technological superiority, assuming that younger species would always remain dependent on their advanced knowledge. They had never encountered a species that could absorb, understand, and improve upon foreign technology as rapidly as humanity. But your numbers, Yarathul protested. You're one species against 47. Even with improved weapons, you cannot match our combined resources. One species? Webb laughed, and it was not a pleasant sound. Captain, look at your sensor readings again. Look at every system in the galaxy that the Council considers secure. Yarathul's blood turned cold as reports flooded in from across Council space. Human installations were revealing themselves everywhere, often in systems where no human presence had been detected. More terrifying, they weren't alone. Other species, ones the Council had dismissed as primitive or unimportant, were joining them. The Karathi mining confederations, the Zephyran agricultural colonies, the Helix research cooperatives. Webb listed casually. Funny thing about younger species, Captain. When you treat them as inferior, they tend to band together. When you offer them better technology and fairer treatment than they receive from their supposed protectors, they become very loyal allies. The display showed the true scope of what humanity had accomplished. Not just hidden installations, but an entire network of allied species who had been secretly working together for decades. Species the Council had ignored or exploited had been quietly building their own technological capabilities under human guidance. This is impossible, Yarathul repeated, but her voice lacked conviction. Your people have a saying, Webb continued. The universe belongs to those strong enough to claim it. You taught us that might makes right, that superior technology justifies any action. Congratulations, Captain. You were excellent teachers. Yarathul stared at the tactical display as it updated to show the full scope of human preparation. Earth's solar system had become a death trap designed specifically to counter Council tactics. Across the galaxy, a shadow alliance had emerged that commanded resources and technology the Council hadn't even known existed. For the first time in galactic history, the Council faced opponents who understood their weaknesses better than they understood them themselves. 4 hours, Captain, Webb said quietly. Use them wisely. Because after that, the galaxy is going to discover whether the Galactic Council is as invincible as you've claimed for the past 10,000 years. The transmission ended, leaving Yarathul staring at displays that showed her fleet surrounded by weapons they couldn't understand, facing an enemy that knew their every weakness, with no backup available, because every other Council fleet was facing similar situations across the galaxy. Humanity had not just prepared for war, they had prepared to win it. High Counselor Zethkar stood in the emergency session chamber as reports flooded in from across Council space. His scales had shifted through every color in the spectrum as the true scope of humanity's preparations became clear. Around him, the greatest minds of 47 species struggled to comprehend how they had been so thoroughly outmaneuvered. Status report from Sector 7, announced Council Admiral Nexus, a cybernetic being whose mechanical form typically projected unshakable confidence. Now even his synthetic voice carried notes of uncertainty. The human installations in the Kepler Nebula have revealed themselves to be fully operational shipyards. They're producing vessels at a rate that shouldn't be possible. Sector 12, added Defense Coordinator Velnara, her ethereal form flickering with stress. Human agricultural colonies have transformed into weapons manufacturing centers. They're supplying not just their own forces, but 17 previously aligned species who have declared independence from Council authority. Zethkar's claws scraped against the crystalline podium as he processed the information. In less than 6 hours, the carefully maintained galactic order that had existed for millennia was crumbling. Worse, it was being dismantled by a species the Council had planned to eliminate for being too adaptable. How many systems have we lost contact with? He asked quietly. The silence that followed was answer enough. Counselor Vexani materialized beside him, her energy form pulsing with barely controlled panic. Zethkar, we're receiving surrender demands from systems throughout the core sectors. Species that have been council members for thousands of years are declaring neutrality, or outright joining the human alliance. The great screens around the chamber displayed the galaxy-wide catastrophe unfolding in real time. Green markers that had represented council-controlled systems for generations were turning red as world after world either fell silent or actively joined the human rebellion. Most disturbing of all, the humans weren't conquering these systems by force, they were liberating them. Play the Altarian Declaration, Zethkar commanded with resignation. The screen filled with the image of Queen Altara, ruler of a proud warrior species that had been among the Council's most loyal members for over 3,000 years. Her reptilian features, usually composed and regal, were alive with something the Council had never seen before: hope. People of Altaria, the Queen announced. For 3 millennia, we have served the Galactic Council faithfully. We have paid tribute, accepted technological limitations, and remained grateful for their protection. Today, we discover that protection was actually subjugation. Behind the Queen, massive holographic displays showed comparative technology charts. Weapons, ships, medical equipment, agricultural systems in every category. The technology humanity had shared with their allies surpassed what the Council had provided to even their most favored member species. The humans have shown us that the galaxy contains wonders the Council declared impossible. Queen Altara continued. They have shared knowledge freely that the Council hoarded jealously. They have offered partnership where the Council demanded subservience. The Altarian Empire hereby withdraws from the Galactic Council and pledges alliance with the Human Federation and all species seeking true freedom among the stars. The transmission ended, but its impact reverberated through the chamber. Altaria's defection wasn't just a political disaster, it was a strategic catastrophe. Their homeworld controlled 3 major hyperspace routes and commanded the loyalty of dozens of smaller systems. 37 systems in the last hour, Admiral Nexus reported. If this rate continues, the Council will control less than half of galactic space by tomorrow. Zethkar felt the weight of 10,000 years of galactic dominance crushing down on him. The Council had ruled by maintaining technological superiority and political control. They had never faced an opponent that could offer their subjects better alternatives to both. What about our fleets? He asked desperately. Can we at least maintain military superiority? The question was answered by Captain Yarathul's transmission from the Sol system. Her image appeared on screen, but she was no longer aboard her flagship. Instead, she stood in what appeared to be a human facility, her uniform replaced with civilian clothes and her expression one of profound revelation. High Counselor, she began, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was about to say. I am speaking to you from aboard the human station Prometheus 1. I have surrendered my command. The chamber erupted in shocked voices from a dozen different species. The captain of the Council's most powerful warship had not just been defeated, she had voluntarily surrendered. Explain yourself. Zethkar roared, his scales flashing crimson with rage. Yarathul's expression didn't change. With respect, High Counselor, I have seen what we came here to destroy. The humans didn't just build weapons, they built a civilization. In 6 hours aboard this station, I've witnessed medical treatments that could save millions of Council citizens who die annually from diseases we consider incurable. I've seen energy systems that could end resource scarcity across the galaxy. I've watched species working together as equals, sharing knowledge freely instead of hoarding it for political advantage. She gestured to something off-screen, and the display split to show the interior of the human station. Representatives from dozens of species worked side by side in laboratories, engineering bays, and command centers. What struck Zethkar most was their expressions. They looked happy, purposeful, excited about their work in ways he hadn't seen in Council space for centuries. They showed me our tactical analysis, Yarathul continued. Every weakness of every ship in our fleet, every counter-strategy for every possible Council response. But more than that, they showed me why they could accomplish in 50 years what took us millennia. They don't waste time maintaining artificial hierarchies or preserving technological monopolies. They just solve problems and move forward. Zethkar's world was crumbling around him, but he made one last desperate attempt to salvage the situation. What do they want? Tribute, territory, subjugation of the council species? Yarathol's laugh was bitter. That's the most terrifying part, High Counselor. They want exactly what they've always wanted: peaceful coexistence and the free exchange of knowledge. The only reason we're facing war is because we chose to destroy them rather than accept them as equals. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out as council forces encountered human technology and human philosophy for the first time, without the filter of council propaganda. "Sir," Admiral Nexus said quietly, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Director Webb. Galaxy-wide broadcast. All frequencies." Zethkar nodded numbly. "Put it through." Webb's image appeared on every screen in council space simultaneously. Behind him stood representatives of over 100 species, including many that had been council members just hours before. His expression was neither triumphant nor cruel, just tired and determined. "People of the galaxy," he began, "the Galactic Council has ruled for 10,000 years by controlling technology and suppressing advancement. They have maintained their power by keeping younger species dependent and preventing them from reaching their true potential. Today that ends." The display showed a galaxy-wide map with updated territorial boundaries. Over 60% of council space had declared independence or alliance with humanity. More systems were changing status even as they watched. "We offer a simple choice," Webb continued. "Join us in building a galaxy where knowledge is shared freely, where all species are treated as equals, where advancement is encouraged rather than suppressed, or attempt to maintain the old order through force, knowing that we possess superior technology and the loyalty of those you once oppressed." Zethkar realized with crystalline clarity that this was not a negotiation. This was a surrender demand wrapped in diplomatic language. Humanity had not just defeated the Council, they had made them irrelevant. "What is your answer, High Counselor?" Webb asked as if he could see directly into the council chamber. Zethkar looked around at his fellow counselors, seeing his own defeat reflected in their expressions. 10,000 years of galactic dominance had ended in a single day, brought down by the very species they had tried to destroy for being too adaptable. The galaxy had new rulers, and they had learned their lessons well. 3 months after the galaxy-wide revolution, Director Marcus Webb stood in the ruins of the Grand Council Chamber on Nexus Prime, the former capital of galactic civilization. The crystalline walls that had once housed the most powerful beings in the galaxy were cracked and dark. Their luminescent properties faded since the Council's power grid had been disconnected. Beside him walked Dr. Elena Vasquez, now serving as Earth's chief science advisor to the newly formed Galactic Federation. Her expression was troubled as she surveyed the abandoned magnificence around them. "Do you ever wonder if we went too far?" she asked quietly. Marcus paused before answering, his gaze fixed on the empty throne where High Counselor Zethkar had once held court. "Every day. But then I remember the sterilization order against Earth, and I sleep a little better." The transformation of Galactic society had been swift and, by most measures, remarkably bloodless. Of the 47 species that had formed the original council, 31 had voluntarily integrated into the new federation within weeks of humanity's demonstration of power. The remaining 16 had retreated to distant sectors, neither surrendering nor continuing hostilities, effectively exiling themselves from galactic civilization. "The integration reports," Elena said, consulting her tablet. "The former council species are struggling more than we anticipated." Marcus nodded grimly. This had been the unexpected challenge of victory. Defeating the council had been the easy part. Figuring out what to do with 10,000 years of entrenched bureaucracy and social hierarchy was proving far more difficult. "Show me the Velkar statistics," he requested. Elena brought up the data with a few gestures. The Velkar, Zethkar's own species and one of the council's founding members, painted a sobering picture of the revolution's unintended consequences. 60% unemployment, 20% population decline due to off-world emigration, massive social unrest as their traditional caste system collapses. The problem was simple in concept, but devastating in practice. The council species had built their entire civilization around being technological and cultural superiors to younger species. When humanity had introduced the Federation's open knowledge-sharing policies, the fundamental basis of their society had evaporated overnight. They've never had to compete or innovate, Elena continued. For millennia, their status came from controlling information and maintaining technological monopolies. Now that all knowledge is freely available, they're discovering they can't keep up with species they once considered primitive. Marcus pulled up another display showing the broader picture. It's not just the Velkar. Look at the Nethys, the Althurian Empire, the Crystalline Collective. Every species that held power in the old system is struggling to find their place in the new one. The bitter irony was that humanity's revolution had created the exact problem the Council had claimed to be solving. By making technological advancement open and competitive, they had condemned the former rulers to technological obsolescence. Species that had spent millennia in stagnant supremacy suddenly found themselves outpaced by civilizations they had held back for generations. Ambassador Chen's report from the Zephyran colonies, Elena said, bringing up another file. It's even more complex than we thought. Sarah Chen had been assigned to oversee the integration of former Council client states, and her reports painted a picture of civilizations struggling with sudden freedom. The Zephyrans, who had been agricultural specialists under Council rule, were now developing advanced manufacturing capabilities with human assistance. But their rapid advancement was destabilizing neighboring systems that couldn't match their pace. Dr. Webb, a voice called from the chamber entrance. Marcus turned to see Captain Lisa Torres approaching, her expression grim. We have a situation developing in Sector 15. Marcus closed his eyes briefly, knowing that his hopes for a peaceful transition were about to be challenged again. What kind of situation? The Karathan Mining Confederation has broken off trade relations with the Helix research cooperatives. They're claiming the Helix are using Federation technology to undercut their operations. 3 systems are threatening to withdraw from the Federation entirely. This was the pattern that had been emerging across former Council space. Liberation from Council control had unleashed not just innovation and growth, but also competition and conflict that the old system's rigid hierarchies had prevented. Species that had been forced into specialized roles for millennia were suddenly free to pursue any path they chose, often bringing them into conflict with others. And the former Council species? Marcus asked. Torres's expression darkened. 17. Velkar colony worlds have requested asylum from what they're calling technological terrorism. They claim the rapid advancement of former client species threatens their way of life and are demanding Federation protection from progress they can't match. Marcus felt the weight of unintended consequences settling on his shoulders. Humanity had overthrown the Council to prevent their own destruction and create a more equitable galaxy. But their success was destroying civilizations that had grown dependent on the very system humanity had fought to eliminate. What does the psychological analysis team say? He asked Elena. Dr. Morgan's team has identified it as a galaxy-wide case of dependency syndrome, she replied. The Council species were never taught to adapt or innovate independently. For 10,000 years, they've defined their worth through their position in a fixed hierarchy. Without that structure, they're experiencing what amounts to civilizational depression. Marcus walked to the chamber's great window, looking out at Nexus Prime's capital city below. Once it had been a gleaming monument to galactic unity under Council rule. Now it was a patchwork of abandoned districts and hastily converted refugee centers, housing displaced populations from across former Council space. How many refugees are we processing now? He asked quietly. Last count was 43 million, Torres replied. Species fleeing their homeworlds because they can't compete in the new economy. Council loyalists seeking protection from liberation. Movements, traditional communities being overwhelmed by rapid technological change. The Federation had become not just a government but a massive relief organization, struggling to help billions of beings adapt to a galaxy that had changed faster than most could comprehend. Humanity's greatest strength, their ability to adapt rapidly to changing circumstances, had become a curse for species that had evolved to thrive in stable, unchanging environments. Sir, Elena said softly, there's something else. The latest intelligence reports from our deep space monitoring stations. Marcus turned back to face her, reading the concern in her expression. We're detecting construction activity in the void sectors. Large-scale industrial operations in systems that were supposedly uninhabited. The implications hit Marcus immediately. The 16 Council species that had rejected Federation membership hadn't simply retreated. They were building something in the galaxy's most remote regions. Military construction? Torres asked. Unknown, Elena admitted. But the energy signatures are enormous. Whatever they're building, it's bigger than anything the old Council ever constructed. Marcus stared at the data streams showing mysterious activity in the galactic periphery. Humanity had won their war against the Council, but victory was proving more complicated than anyone had imagined. They had liberated the galaxy from 10,000 years of stagnation, but in doing so, they had created instability that threatened to tear galactic civilization apart. Prepare a full briefing for the Federation Council, he ordered finally. It's time to acknowledge that winning the revolution was just the beginning. Now we have to figure out how to live with the consequences. As they prepared to leave the abandoned chamber, Marcus took one last look at the empty throne where Zethkar had once ruled. The Council had maintained galactic peace through oppression and technological control. Humanity had offered freedom and progress instead. But freedom, it turned out, was far more dangerous than anyone had anticipated. And somewhere in the void, sectors the defeated were building something that suggested the war might not be as finished as Earth had believed. Commander Sarah Chen floated in zero gravity aboard the reconnaissance vessel Silent Observer, studying the sensor readings that had brought them to the edge of known space. Beside her, Captain Torres manipulated holographic displays showing the massive construction in the void sectors that their deep space monitoring stations had detected. How long have they been building this? Sarah asked, her voice tight with concern. Based on the construction patterns and energy signatures, at least 8 months, Torres replied. They started building the moment they retreated from Federation space. The structure before them defied easy categorization. It wasn't a space station or a shipyard. It was something entirely new. A massive ring-shaped construct nearly the size of a small moon, covered in geometric patterns that hurt the eyes to look at directly. Around it orbited hundreds of smaller installations, each one pulsing with energy signatures unlike anything in the Federation database. Analysis complete, announced Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the ship's xenoarchaeologist and one of humanity's leading experts on ancient galactic civilizations. Commander, you need to see this. Sarah pushed off from the bulkhead and floated over to Dr. Tanaka's station. The scientist's usually calm demeanor was replaced by barely controlled excitement and terror. These aren't new constructions, Dr. Tanaka explained, highlighting sections of the mysterious ring. Look at the underlying architecture. This is ancient technology, possibly predating the Council by millennia. They're not building something, they're awakening something. The implications sent chills through the crew. The galaxy had ancient ruins scattered throughout its spiral arms, remnants of civilizations that had risen and fallen long before the Council's formation. Most were considered archaeological curiosities, their technology too degraded to function. But if the exiled Council species had found a way to reactivate ancient systems, what kind of technology are we looking at? Sarah asked. Dr. Tanaka brought up comparative analysis charts. The energy patterns suggest capabilities far beyond anything the Council ever possessed. If I had to guess, I'd say this predates the Great Silence. Sarah felt her blood turn cold. The Great Silence was galactic history's greatest mystery, a period roughly 15,000 years ago, when dozens of advanced civilizations had simply vanished simultaneously, leaving behind only ruins and fragmentary records. Most historians believed it had been caused by natural disaster or gradual decline, but some theories suggested something far more sinister. Incoming transmission, reported the communications officer. It's on a frequency I've never seen before. Put it through. The main display filled with an image that made everyone on the bridge step back in shock. It was Zethkar, but changed. The former High Counselor's scales had turned completely black, and his eyes now glowed with an unnatural light. Behind him stood representatives of the other exiled Council species, all showing similar alterations. Commander Chen, Zethkar said, his voice carrying harmonics that hadn't been there before. How thoughtful of the Federation to send observers. You arrive just in time to witness the restoration of proper galactic order. Sarah activated her own transmission. Zethkar, what have you done to yourself? What is that structure? The former High Counselor's laugh echoed with sounds no living throat should have been able to produce. You call it the Void Sectors, but that name reflects your ignorance. These are the preserve zones, kept empty by ancient compact to house the final solution to galactic discord. Dr. Tanaka was frantically cross-referencing archaeological databases at her station. Commander, she whispered urgently, I'm finding references in the deepest archives. There are warnings, fragments of records about something called the Unity Protocol. The Unity Protocol, Zethkar continued as if he had heard her, created by the ancients to ensure galactic peace by eliminating the chaos of individual will. Your Federation has proven that lesser species cannot handle freedom. They fight, compete, advance beyond their stations. This disorder ends now. The massive ring began to pulse with increasing intensity, and Sarah's sensors detected energy readings climbing to unprecedented levels. All Federation worlds will be brought into unity, Zethkar announced. Individual consciousness breeds conflict and competition. The ancient solution is elegant. One mind for all beings. One will guiding every action, perfect peace through perfect control. Sarah's worst fears crystallized as she understood what they were facing. The exiled council species hadn't just found ancient technology. They had discovered and embraced a solution so extreme that even their authoritarian predecessors had kept it sealed away. The Unity Protocol wasn't just conquest. It was the complete elimination of free will across the galaxy. You're talking about mind control on a galactic scale, Sarah said, unable to hide her horror. Mind liberation, Zethkar corrected. Freedom from the burden of choice, from the pain of individual failure, from the chaos of competing desires. Every being will share one perfect consciousness, guided by those wise enough to direct galactic affairs properly. Dr. Tanaka pulled up additional archaeological data. Commander, the energy patterns match theoretical descriptions of consciousness transfer technology. If they activate that ring, it could project a field across multiple star systems, forcibly integrating billions of minds into a collective consciousness. How long until activation? Sarah asked quietly. Based on the power buildup, less than 6 hours. Sarah closed her eyes, calculating distances and response times. Even if they transmitted a warning immediately, Federation forces were too far away to intervene. The nearest human fleet was 3 days out at maximum speed. By the time reinforcements arrived, half the galaxy could be under Unity control. There is no escape this time, Zethkar continued, his transformed features showing neither anger nor satisfaction, only cold certainty. Your Federation preached freedom and progress, but created only chaos and suffering. The Unity will provide what your revolution could not: eternal peace. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the silent observer in stunned silence. Around them, the ancient ring continued its ominous charge sequence, preparing to unleash technology that would transform galactic civilization into something fundamentally inhuman. Orders, Commander? Torres asked quietly. Sarah stared at the displays showing Federation space beyond, where billions of beings lived their lives in freedom, unaware that their individual existence was about to end. Humans, Altarians, Corathans, Zephyrans, and hundreds of other species who had embraced the promise of the Federation, all about to be reduced to components of a single, enforced consciousness. Signal the Federation Council, she ordered. Full priority, maximum encryption. Tell them the exiled council species have found something worse than weapons. Then prepare a full sensor package for transmission. What about us? Torres asked. Sarah looked at the massive ring structure, calculating their options. The silent observer was fast but lightly armed, no match for the defensive systems around the ancient installation. But it was also small and stealthy, potentially capable of reaching the ring before its sensors could track them. How much damage could we do with a full antimatter detonation against that structure? She asked. Torres ran the calculations. Unknown. That ring has been dormant for thousands of years. Even a small disruption might be enough to destabilize the activation sequence. Sarah nodded grimly. Then we're going to find out. Humanity wanted freedom for the galaxy. Looks like we're going to have to pay for it one more time. The silent observer began its final approach toward the Unity Ring, carrying the hopes and freedoms of 1 trillion beings in its small but determined hull. The war for galactic freedom, it seemed, had one last battle left to fight. Director Marcus Webb stood in the Federation's Emergency Command Center on Luna Base, watching as tactical displays showed the approaching catastrophe. Reports flooded in from across Federation space as the Unity Protocol's influence began spreading from the void sectors. Entire star systems had gone silent within hours, their populations absorbed into the expanding collective consciousness. "Status report," he demanded, his voice steady despite the magnitude of the crisis. 73 systems confirmed under Unity control, reported Admiral Torres from her position aboard the approaching Federation fleet. The ring structure is projecting some kind of quantum field that converts individual consciousness into collective thought. Once it takes hold, affected populations actively help spread the effect to neighboring systems. Marcus studied the tactical displays with growing despair. The Unity Protocol wasn't just conquering territory, it was converting the conquered into willing agents of further expansion. Every person brought under its control became a tool for spreading the collective consciousness further. "Time until the field reaches Earth?" he asked quietly. "At current expansion rates, 18 hours. Dr. Vasquez replied from her science station. "The effect appears to travel along hyperspace routes, moving faster between systems with established communication links." The ultimate irony was not lost on anyone in the command center. Humanity's success in connecting the galaxy with improved communication and transportation networks had created the perfect infrastructure for the Unity Protocol to spread across civilized space. "Sir," Communications Officer Kim announced, "we're receiving a transmission from Commander Chen. It's unusual." Marcus authorized the communication, and Sarah's image appeared on the main screen. But something was different about her appearance. Her eyes held a strange calm, and her voice carried the same harmonic undertones they had heard from Zethkar. "Director Webb," she said, her tone unnaturally peaceful. "I am speaking to you from within Unity. I wanted you to understand before the conversion reaches Earth." Marcus felt his world crumble. If Sarah had been absorbed by the collective, then their last hope of stopping the ring had failed. "The fear you're experiencing is unnecessary," Sarah continued. "Unity is not conquest or destruction. It is completion. For the first time in my life, I am free from doubt, from conflict, from the isolation of individual consciousness. I share thoughts with millions of beings across dozens of species, and we are truly one." "Sarah, fight it," Marcus pleaded. "Remember who you are. Remember Earth, your family, your choices." "I remember everything," she replied with absolute serenity. "But I also understand now that individual choice creates suffering. Competition breeds conflict. Personal ambition leads to inequality and war. Unity offers perfect cooperation, shared wisdom, and eternal peace." Dr. Vasquez stepped forward. "Sarah, what about innovation? What about progress? What about the freedom to grow and change?" "Progress toward what?" Sarah asked. "Change for whose benefit? Individual growth creates individual pain. In Unity, all beings share all knowledge instantly. There is no need for competition or advancement, because all wisdom belongs to everyone." Immediately, Marcus realized he was hearing humanity's greatest fear made real, the offer of perfect peace at the cost of individual identity. The Unity Protocol promised to solve every problem that had plagued galactic civilization by eliminating the source of all conflict, personal will itself. "Sir," Admiral Torres reported from the fleet, "we've reached the void sectors. The ring structure it's beautiful. I can see why they'd want to activate it." Marcus's blood ran cold as he heard the same harmonic undertones beginning to affect his fleet commander's voice. "All ships, withdraw immediately," he ordered. "The effect can reach you even at distance." "Director," Sarah's image said gently, "you cannot stop what has already begun. But you can choose to join willingly rather than resist. I promise you the transition is painless. Afterwards, you'll wonder why you ever wanted the burden of individual thought." The displays showed the expanding field of Unity control spreading along hyperspace routes like a wave of perfect calm. System after system fell silent before beginning to transmit the same message: peaceful surrender to collective consciousness. "There has to be a way to fight this," Marcus said desperately. Dr. Vasquez was frantically analyzing the Unity field's properties. "Marcus, I think I've found something. The quantum signature suggests the field requires continuous reinforcement from the ring structure. If we could disrupt the transmission, Every ship that gets close enough is converted, Marcus pointed out. Not necessarily, Dr. Vasquez continued, her excitement growing. The field affects conscious minds by connecting them to the collective. But what if we sent something without a conscious mind to connect to? Marcus understood immediately. Automated systems. AI-controlled ships. We'd need something sophisticated enough to navigate the defenses but simple enough to avoid consciousness conversion, she explained. And we'd need to build it faster than Unity can reach Earth. Marcus activated the emergency construction protocols that had been refined during humanity's preparation for war with the Council. Within hours, automated factories across the Sol system began producing a new type of vessel, ships guided by advanced AI but deliberately designed without the spark of consciousness that the Unity protocol could capture. Sarah, Marcus said, returning to the communication channel, if Unity is truly peaceful, why not give us time to choose for ourselves? Because individual consciousness creates the illusion of choice, she replied sadly. You believe you are choosing freely, but your thoughts are shaped by fear, by cultural conditioning, by evolutionary impulses that no longer serve galactic civilization. Only through Unity can true choice exist, the choice of collective wisdom unclouded by individual limitation. As Marcus watched the automated fleet launch toward the void sectors, he grappled with the most terrifying question of all. What if Sarah was right? What if individual consciousness really was the source of all conflict and suffering? What if Unity offered genuine improvement rather than oppression? The automated ships reached the ring structure, just as Unity's influence approached the outer systems of Federation space. Without conscious minds to convert, they passed through the defensive fields and began their attack on the ancient installation. But as explosions lit up the void around the ring, Marcus realized that destroying Unity wouldn't answer the fundamental question it had raised. Humanity had fought for freedom and achieved it. But freedom meant the freedom to choose wrongly, to compete destructively, to suffer individually. Unity promised to solve those problems by eliminating choice itself. The ring is destabilizing, Dr. Vasquez reported as the automated attack took effect. The Unity field is collapsing. Across the galaxy, billions of beings suddenly found themselves returned to individual consciousness, carrying memories of perfect cooperation and shared wisdom that they would never experience again. They remembered what Unity had felt like, the absence of loneliness, conflict, and uncertainty. Many of them wept for what they had lost. In the command center on Luna Base, Marcus watched as Sarah's image flickered back to normal awareness, confusion and loss replacing the serene certainty that Unity had provided. Marcus, she said, her voice small and uncertain. I remember. We were all connected. There was no pain, no doubt. Why did you stop it? Marcus looked out at the stars, knowing that humanity had saved galactic freedom but hadn't answered the deeper question of whether freedom was worth its costs. Somewhere in the galaxy, beings would remember Unity's perfect peace and wonder if individual consciousness was truly a gift or a curse. Because, Marcus said quietly, the right to choose wrongly is the foundation of the right to choose at all. Unity offered perfect peace, but peace without choice isn't peace, it's just the absence of conflict. He activated galaxy-wide communications to address the liberated populations. People of the Federation, he began, we have faced the ultimate temptation, the offer of perfect unity at the cost of individual identity. We chose freedom, with all its messy complications and painful choices. That choice defines us as conscious beings worthy of existence among the stars. But even as he spoke, Marcus wondered how many beings across the galaxy were listening to his words and remembering the perfect calm of unity, wondering if humanity had saved them or condemned them to eternal struggle. The war for galactic freedom was over. The question of whether freedom was worth fighting for had only begun.